set up. Uh-oh. My web camera just flickered for. That's still got the same setting. Unless it just finally started up. Alright. Gonna have a little bit of latency on my computer right now, but that's mainly because KSP is loading all the freaking mods I have in it. And while that all takes place, I'm working on getting the link to the YouTube stream embedded in the Extra Life stream itself on their website. But it hasn't popped up yet, and unfortunately XSplit doesn't grab the link that it's given for the stream creation. I'm sure that at some point a request to live stream through a third-party application receives a JSON file containing data beyond a normal HTTP request, which is okay because you're going to get that if you get the wrong link and tons of other issues still. And also more details for when a stream fails to start up successfully. And one of those variables in the JSON file it receives is inarguably going to tell you the link of the stream just created, but it won't give me that detail. So I have to wait for it to pop up in my channel. Here we go, finally. And it's gonna probably autoplay it. And update that. Alright, we should be getting somewhere now. I feel it starting to stop slowing down on me. So it should be loaded up. It's still going to look like it's not in the stream until I open it back up. It doesn't continue to stream it live while it's in background. Everything should be good. There was an issue at the end of last stream where there was an issue at the start of last stream. Let's start with that one, where these guys appeared as ghosts, and as a result, the content of the game, I'll go ahead and load it up just to show you what I'm talking about, like they're also still ghosty. The content of the game, I hate my neighbors so much. It's like 9:30 p.m. I'm sure that's not that late, but it's late enough you should be outside in the parking lot singing unintelligibly, no less. But so it all looked like it was underwater. We got around that pretty easily by running it in DirectX 9, but I think I had it running fine today while I wasn't streaming. So this is what it should show in that first scene to begin with, but also not ghosted, but it should show this instead of the three guys. It should show the guy with the thing on his back because I've got the KIS and KAS mods going. But then also, while we get it started up again via DirectX 9 instead of OpenGL, as that definitely fixed it for the last stream. And I should have alt-tabbed out and ended the task. It takes a few minutes to turn off when you turn it off the right way. So now we gotta wait a little longer. I apologize. Most of the views on my live streams to date have been well after they've started, and even more so after the end of each stream is when I get almost all my views on average. So just skip ahead a few more minutes from now. If I'm playing, it's good to go. See, that's what it should look like right there. That last scene, that's what it should normally look like. But obviously we can't use it. We told it to close. It's some sort of weird shader issue. But that means that I have to go in here and say remove on OpenGL. And then we'll add in another source once it exists, but it doesn't just yet. I need to go into CCAN, which I am really glad I found because the websites for mods, especially Twitch's CurseForge or whatever, suck. Like, there are like 3 mods compatible with anything, any version of KSP in the last 3 or 4 years on Forge when you're filtering it to those versions. There are even fewer than that number of mods in CCAN that aren't compatible with those versions, all combined. So there's obviously a disconnect in correct information on CurseForge for mods for this game, at the least for this game. And it's also, you have to watch ads to do downloads. You get shifted around between tons of different websites, and then in the end, you often just have to go to their GitHub page and download it as a release. It's just not worth it. And then there's conflicts, there's dependencies, and that doesn't get handled. This, you can't see it. It's CCAN. I'll pull it up real quick. It, looks like that. My mouse isn't even actually on it right now. It's a little annoying that it makes it look like it is. But so that's CCAN. It's very convenient. CKAN, since the program is currently blurred out from my overlays. But I am going to go ahead and try and start it up through here. In hopes that it circumvents that issue by using DirectX 9 instead of OpenGL, which is also going to make it run a little slower. We'll have to deal with it. There you go, there it is. I'm going to bring it underneath. There you go, and I am going to set it for 19. I know in the last stream I said I was no longer going to use XSplit. But as for now, I have yet to grab something else such as like OBS. OBS is probably better. I forget what the reason was in my last... Oh, it was because when I ended the stream, I realized that my... despite starting the stream with my USB video device, my web camera, set up to not use video input, as it just started doing again, it was using it anyways. So I just paused for a second while it flips off and turns the camera back on, because for some reason it has to do that to stop grabbing sound from the microphone. That's stupid, but... Alright, so if I was echoing or reverberating a bit before in this stream, it's now going to be fixed. As of now, it is fixed, if it was a problem at all. Now then, at the end of our last stream, it ended very sadly. We got our controls got locked out the second we got pretty much out of the atmosphere while trying to put Curb Your Enthusiasm 1 into orbit for a probe mission. I kept trying it, kept getting the issue once I got off stream. Well, I didn't keep trying it that night off stream. I tried it throughout the day earlier on when I woke up. And I managed to get the same results consistently, and then I decided to go back and check on the commits on GitHub for 3 mods that I updated when I first went back to the game, when I started these streams, which were 3 different near future mods. Nothing in those would have brought about a control lockout change. And then I noticed when looking in the mod folder itself on my computer, off of CCAN itself, but inside of the game data folder for the game, that the most recently modified folder had been modified this morning, which was not during the stream, it was like around the time I woke up. and that was the mod folder for Kerbal Engineer Redux, KER, which I was thinking right off the bat, oh, that can't be it. I was having the issue before then. But then I thought about it, and I realized that KER wasn't working right since I started streaming this game the other day at all. Like, there were some things that worked, like you could middle mouse click, scroll wheel click on items while in the VAB or in the space playing hangar to get information about them. That was working. There were some other small details that went along the same lines, but for in-flight data that worked. But the overlay that you would get on the top part of your screen up here was gone. And on the toolbar on the right side, when you moused over KER to click on it, it was grayed out. You couldn't use it. It wouldn't pop open the menu for it. So it was broken. So I deleted that mod from my game, made no other changes, immediately started the game back up, tried launching the same ship. Not a single issue. Although I did then end up, because we apparently ended up with some persistent save files, I ended up with two probes in orbit of Kerbin, almost identical orbits, but spaced apart by the amount of time it took them to launch in orbit. In orbit of Kerbin. Because, yeah, I had made a second launch, not aware that the first one was still up there. It looks like it'll be good. Preloading the game for the stream, but apparently it didn't work out right. This is also the benefit of when OpenGL works, which seems to only be when I'm not streaming, is that this doesn't take as long to load, and this screen is instantaneously available the second it's done loading. In addition to more stable frame rates in the actual game, including when part counts of vessels are high, and in addition, after that worked itself out, I complete to the specific parameters required of one of the Kerbin orbit contracts. The other one was left in its original orbit as a relay probe for what it's worth. Mainly because it didn't have the thermometer and the Science Junior and whatever the other component required was for the other Kerbin orbit contract. So that was it for those contracts. Then I spent way longer than I should have engineering and continuously testing and re-engineering and repetitively testing again. A ship designed to complete our contract to test a TD-25 decoupler at anywhere between 14 kilometers and 21 kilometers with a speed between 1,530 meters a second and 1,560 meters a second. I actually can't believe I still remember that because I couldn't remember it when I was testing it. And it was tricky because in order to get to that velocity or that speed that early in terms of altitude above sea level, you have to be going way faster than you should, and shit burns up. So I had no other choice because I don't have the equivalent for it, because that's above the speed of sound. Which I didn't think of when I first thought, oh, well, after trying it and failing every time, and occasionally getting close to the parameters, but not being able to use the split second I had to correctly react in time to stage it off and complete the contract, I decided, oh, well, let's go and design a plane, which I suck at doing. So that took like an hour and a half of my time, and then I realized once I got it off the ground that so the design was that it had, in symmetry, 2 Juno engines with appropriate amounts of liquid fuel and the air intake, the basic beginning parts you get when you unlock Aeroflight tech tree component. And I realized at that point, without testing it, that it wasn't going to be able to get to 1530 to 1560 meters a second regardless of how much delta V it had, it would just be able to hold speed at whatever its max speed really was. So then I added, to the back of it, I replaced the fuselage with T-400 rocket tanks and a Reliant rocket engine, my best liquid fuel and oxidizer engine, in addition to the Juno engines, in hopes that I would be able to get it up to altitude and then push it forward. It still just wasn't enough. And then after falling back to trying it with a rocket from the VAB, I finally got it. And so now we are left with a fully upgraded mission control building and a new Explore the Mun mission. I'm not sure if I did the original one in the last stream or not, but at some point I realized that the contract wasn't actually to land on the Mun. By name I thought it was the same contract name as this, but it was actually just to orbit and come back. I'd rather stage the landing, honestly. It's so long to do it, and then you mess up and you gotta go back. But in addition, these are currently active contracts. I'm going to skip over the orbital station ones because I'm incredibly impressed that we managed to have more than one, let alone one, presented to us at the same time this early on in the game, without having built a space station or docking anything yet. But moving on. Position a satellite in polar orbit of the Mun. We've got one of those. We've got another one of those. Science data from space around Kerbal. This is going to be pretty easy to complete. In fact, when we do this contract after it, it requires a materials bay, a mystery GUI unit, which is the one I was talking about earlier. It actually just doesn't require a thermometer. But that third component I couldn't think of is the mystery GUI unit, although there isn't a third because the thermometer isn't involved. Then we've got the one we had before, which is position a satellite in synchronous orbit of Mimas. This is going to take more than we can afford right now, in reality, because we're going to need a maneuvering engine with maneuvering fuel of its own to adjust our orbit once we're at Mimas, in addition to enough to get us into orbit from the launch pad, and then in a second stage after that we will need enough to get our orbit ready and then to transfer to the Mun bi-elliptically. We still have the test TD18 decoupler. This is a much easier contract than the TD25. Build a new orbital station around the Mun and around Kerbal. They require a fair amount of liquid fuel. It sounds complex. It's not that complex. When we dock pieces to it, we'll be picking them off like that. They're launched, they're built piecemeal in space, ultimately. That's the secret to building space stations. So, as I said, I had issues getting the temperature to not overheat, so I had to turn on ignore max temperature to get ourselves up there. I also had to turn off drag. Let me make sure that that's back on. I'm pretty sure I've done some other stuff since then, but maybe not. Yep, drag's on again. Okay. Because ultimately the test looks like this, the test rocket for, because the TD-25 is big. We don't have many things that can actually fit it, other than I'm not even sure this one's right. Well, if a TD-18 fits on, we know it's not right. Okay, so yeah, this one can fit it. No, this one can't fit it. Sorry. Yes, this part of it is 25. It fits a TD-25 on the bottom. This also holds fuel and has a fair amount of dry weight itself and adds drag. And it's also still on its own right. It's too big, and I'm surprised it's letting us put these on without a command button. Since a lot of parts are typically locked out. Apparently none of my parts are locked out as first parts for the spacecraft. That's a little scary. Okay, here they are now, but still these shouldn't be allowed. But even still, assuming we've got a TD-18 down there, sure, right? We need another, let's say the TD-18's between these. One of these between, with the TD-25 between them, sorry, not 18. And then still, this is, for remember I was doing two T-type fuselages. It's still too big, so you need another adapter, an A15 on both ends, and then to get this connected to, let's say, a KD12, you gotta have one up there. But then to get that connected to our unmanned pod, because I was not going to, I was willing to crash land this back into Kerbal and actually managed to get back in and deploy its parachute just fine. Because it had to leave the atmosphere to go that fast by that altitude. There was no other way around it. It would no longer be controllable at that speed, at that thick of an atmosphere. While going straight up from the whole beginning too. Yeah. So in order to get this to connect to these parts, and the decoupler is just there because coming back in we want the only thing still controlled this and a parachute. So then you had to have you don't have to use one of these for this. It's a little lighter. You can use this, and then it sort of fits. But yeah, it was a pain in the butt. It sucked. And that's not really code anymore. Alright, so moving on. We're going to go ahead and knock out the test TD18 decoupler on an escape trajectory out of Kerbal. I'm going to go ahead and grab an Octo unmanned pod. It has SAS, but all it has is stability assist. It has some reactionary power, namely 0.3 newtons, I think it is. Units, doesn't really specify. Probably kilo units. What's the torque? I don't know. I don't want to speculate on it either. It's not worth the time. Neither mine nor yours right now. So, we are only focusing on the second to last contract. I'm going to minimize these right now. I wish that this was persistent. Or at least persistent. Like you've got like this one says maintain stability for 10 seconds. If I collapse all these at the launch pad right off the bat, and it hasn't been 10 seconds since it's loaded, the second that it's maintained stability for 10 seconds at the launch pad, they all reopen. Same thing any point in orbit once it's lost stability and you've minimized these, and then and once it loses stability, if they're minimized, it expands them all again. Expand the button. At least persistence in that sense. Whether or not it persists from VAB to the launch pad to space. At least in a flight, in a mission, it should be persistent. And it's not just that it opens like the ones that have had that update, it'll open this one too, that has nothing updating on it. Nothing needing to be updated. Clearly something updates on that object in the contract class, I'm sure. I haven't actually fully read the documentation for Kerbal's API, but I'm sure that that's the class, or the rough class, the type of object it is surely a contract, or derived from contracts. Extended from contracts, that's the word, not derived. Anyways, I'm getting a little lost here. So, this one's going to be a relay probe that won't complete a mission. That won't complete a satellite contract, I mean. It's going to be a 2-for-1 though. We're going to get science data from space around Kerbal, even though we could do it with positioning satellite in equatorial orbit of Kerbal. May as well just do this now. So, as a relay, it needs to be configured, naming priority. So, we're going to call this Kerbal 2. I think that's what I named the other probe. The first successful sort of attempt at launching a probe for the Curb Your Enthusiasm series, which was renamed and turned into a probe simply because the contract was completed in the second one, not in the first one. And then I just had an extra probe I was faced with either having it deleted or renaming it to something else and reusing it. I mean, I could have kept the same name, but it would have been weird when I had contracts to adjust the other one's orbit from that company that gave me the first contract, which happens a little later in the game. That's where I'll get a lot of repeat signs from, is adjusting probes, which is why they will start needing to have docking notes on them in a little while. Right now it's not the biggest deal if it's too awkward to put them on there. With everything else we want, such as, let's go into electrical. And let's rotate that. We have snap-on. This is 6 times symmetry. Yep. Most we can get without getting too ugly. Although, it's an octo. It has 8 sides, right? That's what octo stands for. Yeah. If we're willing to do it like this and not have them fully covered, I mean, it still kind of fully covers each side, but then it's a little too tall. We can, oh my god, I really hate that when it does that. First click with the move tool always. Does some stupid shit like this. This is pretty much just cosmetic, getting it lined up again. But what I wanted to do is just lift it up so that it at least is flush with the bottom of the command module. Can't zoom in any further, so we really just have to wing it here. I think that's flush with that part of it. But then it needs to be brought out. Okay, and then close it in on that one. So it's not touching. I'm going to just discard this because it just would be simpler at this point to position it off the bat so that we don't have to realign it in terms of this direction. It looks like it still happens. Go figure. Oh, well, I didn't have grid snap on. Better. Perfect. Really. All right. Now, if we want something on top of it, we can have something on top of it. But a docking node is out of the question at this point because this is awkward, even with the only docking node we have, which is the right one for this sort of module. Ooh, turn that symmetry off. And if you're ever having issues where it just doesn't seem to align right, like that, yeah, that's the correct alignment, but it took a little while to get it. And then like down here, it just won't. I forced that one to align. All you got to do is hold the Alt key. If it matters, I'm using the left Alt key. It might be just the left, but I think it's both. Just hold that down while you mouse around, and it will only attach to attachment points. That's it. But see, it's a little awkward. It's a little close. I wouldn't want this many solar panels on a probe to begin with, but I need them simply because these aren't that great solar panels, but they are currently the best we have to work with. So then below that, well, actually, yeah, let's do it below. Grab another one of these. I'm going to duplicate them in. And that's a lot of electric. This has 10. These are 200. So we got 800 here, right? And then 810. Is that what we're left with? I'm not great at math, as you can see. This doesn't show it, does it? Weird. MechJeb, vessel info. Doesn't show it either. Kind of weird. That was one of the things in Kerbal Engineering Redux that was working lately, and always in the past that I've used it, was that we were going to see resource layouts and an overlay over here. While assembling it, but whatever. Not that big of a loss. It's 4x200 plus 10. Right, it is 10 on this top one. It's not too much, but it does add in some mass. Actually, not that much. add the description. I want to add the description. Second generation Kerbal orbiting. Kerbal orbit relay probe. And actually, there are like 3 different types of satellites in the, depending on which one I just gave it. Probe is not the right one. The default one was actually correct, which is rare that I want it to be a relay and not a probe. These contracts for these satellites are actually probes, not relays. But it always defaults to that, which doesn't make a big deal unless you've got a ton of things that are in the tracking station. You're trying to filter them down, and then they're all freaking probes instead of relays, or relays instead of probes. But it's hard to find the correct ones at that point. All those false positives filtering in. So, next up, we could have like a reaction wheel. And attached to these, we want, these are our strongest, and they are not only relays, but also capable of direct transmission. They're combinable. See, like holding Alt doesn't do anything here unless we go up here, because these aren't hard connection nodes. Put these nice up and high. They're not adding much to the center of mass in the end, but they are adding a lot about where it lands right now, because they actually have some weight to them. Nothing else really got us all the way about this much, although the SAS has a good amount of weight, I'm sure. Nope. Even less. So then at this point, what we want is a constantly attached, as in there isn't a separator or any coupling for this part of the stage. Is this not T-type? This looks smaller than the others, doesn't it? Up here it does. It's not. So it's not a TX type, that's for sure. That's weird. I thought that these were to scale. They're not. So then we would have to go into structural components. And let's grab the smaller one and the lighter one at the same time. Got it set for orange. Go back in. It's going to re-enter, like sure, it has to complete this contract, it has to do this on an escape trajectory. It has to stage it has to test it via staging the TD18 decoupler while on an escape trajectory. Our escape trajectory at Kerbal can look something like a transfer to the MUN with nothing else. It could be a transfer to the MUN, and I don't have to add any more detail for that to include a Kerbal escape trajectory. But specifically, we wouldn't add in a retrograde burn during the encounter at the MUN in order to bring our orbit into the MUN. We would just fail to burn on purpose, which would have us fly by the MUN, come right back into a Kerbal orbit, and it'll be a fairly big Kerbal orbit too, which will be great for our third relay probe, our third probe that does any relaying. It's our second probe intended for relay usage, but it is, the first two are identical to each other. The first two relays are probes, so they're both technically relays. So we want, in this stage, we want enough fuel to last for, small, not not really. This isn't going to fulfill one of these satellite contracts. We'll never get a contract telling us to reposition it. It was built for ourselves, not for a company, so it wouldn't have the... See how these have these notes? They have to be new, and they have to be built for this company. Once you put one up there for a contract and it finishes the contract, there's a variable added to... Ultimately, I haven't really looked at the code, but this is almost certainly how it works when these boiled down to its most fundamental aspects. There's a variable that is added to, or at least qualified, if it was already initialized, to that chip that has probably named something like built for or company for, something like that, and then for this one it would become equal to Sean's cannery. And in order to get a contract, that has to have a value, and because that contract comes from Sean's cannery or whoever owns it, or it was built for. I don't know who really owns anything, right? Probably them. They're not really fully paying my expenses. So I still consider them on. I can go and do whatever that I want with them without any say from them. So they're mine, I guess, right? Do I just manage them? Am I my probe's keeper? My probe's keeper? My probe's keeper's keeper. That's probably more so what I do. This should be enough fuel for a little engine like a Terrier that gives us 327 at ASL, which is actually a decent amount of fuel. 1326 with a burn time of 28 seconds. Good. Because there might come a time we might be like, oh, we actually need a little bit more relays on this side, because when we're over at Duna, let's say, which is just like over here, the MUN's right here, and it's occluding our probe that's over here. Like Kerbal right here. I know that was a really bad example. Points of reference for all my mouse cursors. I think I really show the next reference. But occlusion is why we want probe relays in the first place, and more than one of them per body, just to work around it. Like even like our first relays around like Duna are going to need to connect to relays on Duna and on Ike just to get back to Kerbal 24/7, or whatever the time scale is on Kerbal. It's not quite 24/7, is it? Pretty sure it's 7 days a week though. Well, there is no definition for how many days are in a week. It's just days and years. In KSB. So, there you have it. That is our probe payload. There's always a catch, right? TD12 decoupler into, and I think that's really everything we need. Pretty lightweight payload, including the decoupler, which is technically not part of the payload, but it is a requirement to attach it to other things. So we are going to go ahead and we have to, I think, get rid of that into advanced mode, like in the last stream. Showed you sub-assemblies. Let me go ahead and grab this one and put it in there. We still need the decoupler. So there you have it. That is Kerbal 2. See how quick it is once you have sub-assemblies? Designing the probe itself is the funnest part of designing probes after you've built a few. And before you have new components to work with, then it gets fun again. But it's still, most of the fun is still, of course, going to be in the new parts involved in probe payload itself, not in the staging. So that asparagus payload that we added is connecting to this decoupler of the probe payload. And it has these two T100s, my apologies, into a Terrier engine, just like what's up here. But we have this secondary one because this one's going to be used to possibly to correct our orbit around Kerbal in case we run out of fuel trying to get our initial orbit set. This one will be used in case we need to correct our orbit after flyby of the month. There should be enough leftover fuel, even if there ought to be, if in the case that we have to use this lower Terrier engine from the asparagus stage module in order to fix our orbit and, as intended, to do our flyby of the month, which is our escape trajectory for testing a TD-18, which I'm glad I was explaining this out loud because, wow, we don't actually have a TD-18 on board, and I'm not sure what we'll put it on. Knowing that this will survive at least the burn to start our escape trajectory, I would say that we would attach the TD-18 in place there. Not in here, because this is our lowest stage. This one, the original one for our payload, should connect to one of these. See how it's too big. So we have to use an adapter. We don't have any. These are actually identical adapters. They're just longer and heavier. This one by 10 kilo roughly. And clearly this one's all around the better choice. I mean, sometimes you might want this one for when it's going up, and you want this one for when it's meeting down below, like that. But except to imagine that this is actually meeting something in the right diameter on top of this piece. So that's all we got for structural adapters. We'll have to use a fuel tank, and I've got near future fuel, which gives me variations of basically all original stock parts and the mod parts from itself from the near future fuel tanks, which entails having ones that are not only just liquid fuel or oxidizer, or liquid fuel and oxidizer, but also ones that are liquid hydrogen and oxidizer, or liquid hydrogen by itself. The dry weight of these tanks are different between all of these. They have different dry masses. So, since I've got the mod, I'm going to go ahead and be using it, because it will be being used later in the game, and it's nicer. I wish I would have started off my last playthrough with that mod from the beginning, because it adds new things to the tech tree, and it adds new things to already existing parts of the tech tree too. Parts that I had no desire to focus on. So I, was pretty far on in the game when I got the mod, and everything was, from the mod was stuff I wanted, a lot of the stuff, but it was like hidden behind stuff I never cared about, which suddenly some of those prereqs suddenly also had things that I did want from having additions due to the mod being put in. It weighs very little now. Emptied it out, made a liquid hydrogen tank, which is a lower dry mass than the oxidizer alone tank. It's liquid hydrogen slider. I don't know why it's actually different when it's empty, but yeah. Technically it should be heavier because it has cooling capability that the other one would, in theory, not ever have put on it, because you don't have to cool off the rest of the fuel. It's not going to evaporate like a liquid hydrogen will, but whatever. Now then, between these, we need, because this is what we'll stage off this one. So we're gonna have to go ahead and put in a little more fuel up here, unfortunately. Another one of these will do fine. Because we need to bring in another one of these to convert it back to the right size, so that it can connect to the asparagus staging. It's a little big now, isn't it? Alright, so we will be grabbing another one of these. I'm just going to attach it so that I can get rid of that. I didn't feel like searching through here for it. Kind of blinking on which one it was. Nice. Yeah, this is gray and orange, clearly. This part or this part. And then if you want the black and white one, what is all not even white, that is gray, isn't it? And then if you want the white one, Just ripped white. If gray and orange is black and white, you'd expect then black and white to be the gray and orange in reality. Never get it. Never get the orange on a lot of these pieces. Just get the false hope. All in, it only weighs 33.1 tons. Dry. Weighs 140 with the wet. With the wet. Actually, you know what? No, I think the whole thing just weighs 33.1 tons. Yeah. It's nice. That's my limit for how big it can be for my launch pad. Level, because it's not fully upgraded over there. It's at 2 at 3. Because otherwise we can only have 30 parts, which is really hard to do anything but like the first contracts with. So we've got a way to generate electricity, engine jettison before use. So many decouplers. We had to have the TD12 simply because otherwise we'd have this still attached. First of all, we have an engine above it. So I'm sorry for how ugly this is, but we don't have. If we had in the payload category, if we had the fairings, we could fix this even with early on unlocked fairings, or the earlier on unlock, because they're not that early to grab. We could fix this without needing to have it adapted like this. Insofar as just putting like a fairing right here that encloses the payload and all that, and then just stages off when we stage off the test for the decoupler. But how could I ever be that lucky, huh? Don't have that much delta V anymore on these stages, but it should work. It's 1277 plus 1217 plus 719, 3,213. That is actually enough for orbiting. Due to inefficiencies, once I'm out there, it might not be everything we need. I also don't always cut my fuel off right on time coming out. Like when my apoapsis meets where I want to start burning my periapsis out of orbit with. Sometimes I'll just not be looking at it entirely. Probably the same thing will happen with this one because it's a little bit of a pain to control these manually. They don't like to lock on just quite right. We also ended up by unlocking that aerodynamic place just with the sole intent of making a plane for that one contract and possibly future contracts that were difficult like it. Which failed, mind you. Doing it that way, I managed to pull off the contract, as I said, but doing it that way failed. But because we bought that aero tech part tree of our tree, we got these AVR8 winglets, which I will use for like the rest of the game. It's between that and Delta Deluxe winglets for what I ever use. Like these have a better relative wing area and better deflection and actuator speeds, and but they have less control surface. Less of their area is control surface, and they weigh a little less. So it's a toss-up. It depends on the application of why I use one over the other. So 4x symmetry. Put it in snap mode. Looks good enough, right? That's how they do it at NASA here. Good enough. That's how I do it in Kerbal Space Program. It's a simulator, right? That must be how they do it in real life. Good enough is good enough. Always. I mean, that's why it's good enough. So, without any further semantic bullshit, let's get the hell on with this stream. This is why I don't like streaming so late at night. I start to get a little loopy. Lose my train of thought easily, and I go off on tangents like this. But early in the day, I look really groggy despite being super focused. It's a toss-up, now that I've got the camera to stream with. So I said we don't need a docking port here. But what I think we should have is, because when it comes time to upgrade this, we're going to need something to grab onto to get rid of these, since we don't have a docking port at the least. So we'd fly our manned ship near it, slow its relative speed to this ship to 0.0 meters a second, so that they're moving at the same speed relative to each other. Well, they're always moving at the same speed relative to each other, so that they are orbiting their body at the same speed relative to each other. I think I probably worded it better the first time I even brought it up. But then we would want something to hold on to. This is due to having KIS, KAS mods installed. If you're not using those, don't even worry about this part. It's just easier if you are using those to have something to hold on to like this. And these are small enough you can put them in your Kerbal's inventory with those mods. But don't always remember to take them on your flight with you, and you don't always think to put them on your ship just so that you can put them on the things you go to maintain. Which is why when I start doing spaceships or space stations, I will be stocking them with ladders inside of inventory crates, just for those sorts of oopsie moments. I think this does it. We've got relay, we've got what we want to test. We don't have anything for science. We wanted to do science data in orbit of, and so we're gonna go ahead and run, because the 2 science units going on that other one are only restorable if you have the scientists nearby it, which eventually it will, but I will save even bothering to run those until we have a research station in a space station to transfer it over to, and then we'll just do EVAs and spacewalk to it and bring it in and restore it at the same time, and then bring it over to the space station to have it research for more points than it would have to bring it back, or especially to transmit it via antenna back to KSC. So, we're not going to get anything for this because we've already gotten it in space around Kerbal, but our orbit will be high around Kerbal. That might give us the new qualifier for science. It'll be high, in orbit high above Kerbal. Potentially might not actually be that high. And last but not least, I mentioned in the last one, this is actually the wrong group. I didn't see these until just now. I don't know why. They definitely weren't there, these ones. They're supposed to be, but they definitely weren't there because I was looking and I only saw the ones in the Axis group. That's weird. There's also less one down there. Weird that happened. At least I have it recorded. If it did just pop up, I'll know. How far are we into the stream so that I don't have to watch the whole thing to find this moment? And we are 54 minutes in. Already? Wow. I'm sorry. A lot of that probably came to reloading Kerbal space program. Alright, so this one, extend. This one, retract. Good to go. Let's get the hell out of here. But so yeah, in summary of what I was saying earlier, if you are playing KSP and you have mods and suddenly you're having issues that you haven't had recently-ish, or recently, with controls being locked out. Make sure you go ahead and uninstall Kerbal Engineering Redux, especially if you don't have the text overlay you're used to having up here. Like it would say like biome over here, it would say like apoapsis, periapsis, time until, like convenient information, especially when you're not in the maneuver mode, or when you want both of this data, or when you just want biome data. That alone was the reason I kept using Kerbal Engineering Redux while it worked. I never got anything out of it until I saw that part, and I was like, okay. So an alternative to having the science now, the mod that tells you when you have when you're in an area with science you don't have done yet, or when it's about to happen too, I think. All right, easy. And also, when I uninstalled the Engineering Redux, I'm going to go ahead and turn SAS off and hibernate it while I explain this, just because we're going to run out. We're going to deplete battery otherwise. Probably won't run out. I'll turn it back on. We'll be fine. But I'm going to keep SAS up. I was missing a lot of stuff. I didn't unlock anything new since between the time when I deleted that mod and when... Hold on. There we go. Between the time I deleted the Kerbal Engineering Redux mod and when this and a few other things on here popped up again for the first time since coming back to this game, since streaming it for you guys. Like this one was missing. I figured that as per this text here that eventually it would unlock, which is the only reason my tracking station is currently a level 2, which didn't actually unlock anything on its own. So I guess once it's maxed out at level 3, it might do something. But yeah, and it wasn't unlocking when I kept getting newer and newer parts, so. It seems to have a conflict with this now, and with the game itself, no less. But we are at 90 degrees, roughly right where we want to be. We have it so that we've rolled just now, so that all we have to do is pitch down that up. And that's that one up, that is my fault. We're gonna have to do this with caps lock on for, or whatever you have binded in your, if you were in my situation. So that we see these turn blue, which means that they're now fine-tuned. That's holding the W key down versus that. And they also rebound slower, which is more noticeable in docking mode, that they rebound slower. When you have, when it's swaying back and forth afterwards due to the lessened G-force out in space, or the lack of G-force in space. But yeah, sorry. Here we go. It's in fine-tune mode. Pull this up, and we are in that. We throttle up, SAS on, and we pitch 90 degrees. Yes. See, the second we roll, it starts to rotate out a little bit. I know it says 89, but we can't keep pushing down anymore. At this point. We're getting there anyways. See how I'm still not at the surface speed of 1050 to 1060 meters per second? And I'm already above the contract requirements for that last one. It takes a lot to do it, even on a much smaller payload like the last one was, and I missed our intended I missed our intended stopping point. Apoapsis is like almost more than twice of what we needed to get into an orbit, but whatever. It'll have a better Oberth effect, probably. I think it's actually Oberth, not Oberst. He dead by now. He can't hear me saying his name wrong. Not a big deal, is it? Open up those so that we have signal strength amplify in case we actually need it. I don't think we'll be going far enough, but we also have really weak signals from tracking station and not a whole lot of antenna relays set up to relate to a weak internal antenna from the octo itself. So we're gonna go ahead and orient ourselves for it. Roll a little bit. It's gonna flush. So as we time warp, it's going to try and pitch us back up. Unfortunately, it won't track the target. And we'll have to find it again manually, but yeah. I'm gonna go in 10 times. We are really high above the ground. We've got a full tank in that middle. Alright, that's close enough. Come on. We got hopefully enough time to pitch down. I'm gonna have to throttle it early. I'm gonna have to turn off fine tune, throttle it, and hope that we can get a very abscess up in time after that second mistake just happened. Or not. Well, that's supposed to be at least slowing down the time to that collapses. Yeah, slowing it down. It's not bringing it back up yet, but it might be able to. Trying to speed up again. Well, let's hope the split second we have at Apoapsis is enough to push us all the way out. Okay, it's still climbing really fast, though. We have plenty of time before we beat. That wasn't desired. I didn't want to have to start on this tank that early. How much burn time do we have left in this stage? Because we can't extend past 42 seconds. That's for damn sure. In order to... Our best bet is the Mun. Add a maneuver on the periapsis to go out that way. Burn time is 42 seconds on the dot. Let's bring it down a little bit. Wow, that sucks. This could be fixed by doing something like bringing it forward a whole bunch. Like, here we're in maneuver mode. Go into graphical and then like just push this forward a little bit, like a few orbits in advance. Until the Mun would align up with it, but what I'd rather do is just revert to launch and get back up there correctly. Just have to stay a little more focused on the target. Can't wait till we unlock man tech and until we upgrade our pilots high enough that they can do better holdings like target. Then I'll be back to using them until I get unmanned tech that can do targets, but I can't wait until we get unmanned tech that can at least do basic pro-grade hold. Because it just saves me so much energy of doing it myself. Like, it's not that hard to do, it's just you get really comfortable not having to do it anymore. Alright, everything's set, and we're off. 90-degree neutral and back. We're off until we get down here. Sorry. one more go at it. I can't believe I'm having these issues. I didn't put it back in a fine-tune mode, but I didn't think I'd really need it. Yeah, I'm just not going to roll it. It's not necessary. I just like doing it because it makes it a little more convenient. If I could ever remember exactly what position to set it up in the VAB so that it starts out on the launch pad, so that pitching down would go east, then I'd be happy, but yeah, I've yet to actually memorize that direction. Especially when, it's basically the same on all sides of the root node. There's no reference of east in there. Although, if that's the VAB, I suppose when facing the door, the right side is east. Let's go ahead and revert to the VAB. If we can confirm that, we've solved a lot of problems in the future. Convenience level problems, big problems that last. That should do it. We just rotate it once, clockwise. Pitching down should now be east. Perfect. Yeah, perfect. All right. There's east. All right. It's actually pitching up. Weird. Not a big deal. Actually, the direction I pitched by mistake for the big boat. So, happy accident by the mistake. Down there on the Apple axis this time. When I got around here, I was focused on, right around here, I was focused on up here and all that, and talking about the surface speed that I had, and how it made the last contract pretty freaking hard to do, because you also only get a split second at that speed, 1560 to do it, and you only hit that speed closer to 20 kilometers. Compared to 14 to 16 kilometers. By the time you're at 16, if you're already at 1,000, you've only got seconds between each kilometer. A second between each kilometer. Quite literally. All right, so that should solve a lot. It should save a lot of time. What we just did, rotating the root node clockwise once, so that we just pitch up apparently to go east. I don't know. I guess north is to the right of east in this case. Is that actually what's going on? Are we? Yeah. Just making sure it wasn't like negative. And we weren't, rotating the opposite direction around the planet. We're not. We're going east. Oh, actually, nope. That's east. Yeah. Yeah, but we still have to pitch up. I no longer understand the nav ball. It throws me off because it's got an upside down part to it, and I'm only really used to, if at all, a nav ball in the form of a boat helm nav ball. These are just bizarre to me. Very and only remotely familiar, really, in the sense that they're navigational. In a ball, technically they're a ball on a boat, but if you ever see the opposite end of the nav ball, if they even bother to put one in those, something's not good. Or maybe you're just in Australia. I don't really know what would happen if you go over towards Australia. Yeah, we still ended up in our third stage, but 100 kilometers higher almost. And it's bringing us back up, which is great. burning this long seems to use a little more fuel than just burst burning. Make sure it stop right here. Great, yeah, we should still have not used much of any of the fuel in the next stage. We should absolutely have more than 42 seconds of burn time in the next stage. Not by much. I guess it's only 56 when unused. But we're almost there. We just have to get to the absolute zero, pretty much, of this current periapsis. And I burn a little too long there. Not the end of the world, but for efficiency, we're going to have to wait about 10 seconds. Let's get through that. There we go. There's 10 seconds. There's 11.94 kilometers above sea level for periapsis. 18. 25. Alright, let's get it down to like 22 seconds to apoapsis. Another burst should be good. Not quite. Kilometers off. But with fuel to spare, that makes me the happy. I'm going to go ahead and pop that into here, and I'm going to go ahead and drop a quick save in case we make some dumb mistake. Orbit 1, this is my typical workflow for saves. So, it'll typically ask me to confirm overriding. That way I don't just keep making new quick saves. You get a lot of quick saves that way, if you don't name them. And especially if you just don't, either way, if you don't overwrite old ones. And it makes it easier to overwrite them consistently when they're named something other than quick save and then the number. Like my docking ones have different different nomenclature than my orbit ones, different ones than my landing ones, all that. It's so much simpler to find the save in addition. It can get a little tricky when I get, if I've got like 7 total previous docking saves, but I've just made like, let's say, I can't remember if it's my 3rd or my 4th or my 5th docking save for a current docking attempt, and I go to reload the most recent one. It can be a little tricky to know that 5th was my most recent, but it will show me the time on it. So I can compare it to the 6th and the 7th and see that, it's a day or even, 10 minutes newer than the higher numbered one, which clarifies it on its own. So basically we have a fair amount of fuel left that we will unfortunately not do anything with, as it seems. So this will encounter the Mun every year probably. That's pretty cool. Because it doesn't it comes back around. You can see there's a second one here. So it goes out orange, and that's our escape from Kerbal. And then it comes back around green, but in theory, every now and then that green would repeat the history from the orange one. Every now and then. Maybe not every year. But, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and warp to the maneuver. And while it's warping, I'm going to go ahead and do burn 1 save. Which I don't think I've ever had. Oh, I have. Okay. And I know I'm in the wrong engine for right now, but we still have like a second or two of burn, 3 seconds of burn time on it. So while we are fairly off of the 23 seconds of burn that we're looking at, we can nail that target heading fairly well and give it all we got in this stage, just so that everything is used, nothing goes to waste here. Uh-oh. What stage are we in then? Okay, just wanted to confirm it. So we're going to track the target heading just because our ship will continue to rotate with it as long as we're fairly well centered on it. And then by the time it comes to burn at 22 seconds, the ship will automatically steer itself in towards the prograde as it's doing right now. I'm not even touching it. The target heading tracks roughly where you want to point the whole time. And if you're burning way too early, and we are burning a little late now, that's what happens. It goes right on target. Naturally. Because the burning at 0 is where we want to be targeting that prograde on 0. Like we're 0 in on the prograde marker, but up until then it's going to be a little off. It's more off the longer the burn is. So you just get yourself on as early as you can. See, now it's underneath of it because we are past the burn. Nope, we need a little more. There you go. Our situation is orbiting Kerbal. This is what I was afraid of. Alright, we gotta reload burn 1 because we need to make some adjustments. It doesn't qualify as an escape when it's just a flyby orbit. It's not a full transfer. It's like a home-in transfer, really, I think. I think that's what that qualifies as. Slightly more efficient than the other type, but not what we needed to do. What we need to do is stage off that decoupler on a... I put a lowercase b in mine, but this is the correct ship. Alright, what we need to do is go in here. Now this has a Kerbal escape without a reorbit, but we will technically still be on an escape. Will we though? Belay what I was about to say. Pretend I wasn't even gonna start. This is definitely, this has to qualify as one. And then we can bring it back in just the tiniest bit. I should have played out the last attempt. Reset the normal. Get ourselves on the... Okay, we must still have that other stage attached, huh? 3 seconds of burn time. Ditch it. Then we would go back over to here and work the next maneuver. Just a quick click instead of finding and right-clicking on a spot pass or whatever click you have to do now. I can't even remember. We burn at 24 seconds since there are no half-second notes on node time. Get halves on everything else, you know, at least 10th place, whether it's a half or not. You don't get them on this, not even at a half marker. No matter how low it gets. Wouldn't take much to put it in with a mod, though. But at that point, I may as well just use MechJet for it. MechJet makes it a little easier, a lot easier. You don't really have to think to do most of these things. I'm not actually using those parts of MechJet right now, though. Because, wow. It was like smorgasbord of how bad I am at thinking this late in the day at least. Burn 2, even though it should be burnt 2. Or burnt 1, really. Our situation is orbiting Kerbal. This is clearly an escape trajectory, right? At what point does it recognize that? If we burn prograde at... Well, something happened right there. What the hell is that? Those second intercept to the mud by burning further. 3 of them. Doesn't seem to want to let me outside of this encounter. See, and then that's a solar orbit. Let's load back into burn 2. And then I need to focus on getting MechJeb unlocked so that I can just kind of focus on cool builds and cool gameplay. Because I don't have to fly that much once I get my science done. I do a lot of cool stuff in space with KIS and that sort of thing. Building cool space stations, putting them all together. Ooh, docking with ease, even though that was like my worst ability earlier on. MechJet will pave the way, so to speak. Okay, well, that's it for fuel right there. We'll end up with a Kerbal escape. Escapable. This is a name I've never given a save, but hopefully it doesn't ever have to happen again. We'll put those out because we are about to lose everything we know. Oh, look, there's the moon. I would have made this a little easier. Just point below it and go. This ladder looks so bizarre, doesn't it? I really want to get rid of the dead weight, but this is our TD18 that we have to test. Oh! Well, I wish I would have checked this earlier. Not a big deal. Oh, it is qualified as escaping now. Let's see, we're only that far along in our orbit. This is sort of what I was hoping for. Oh no. It's as if we were never there. Let's add a maneuver to burn retrograde, and then we're going to adjust it to find just the right point. Periapsis is too low. Do I not get picked up by Kerbal at the end of that? I'm just decreasing the burn time here to ensure that we have excess fuel. Won't be excess when we need it though. Might as well get our bang for our buck here. Burn at 4 seconds. How much fuel do we have in this? 56 seconds of burn, just like the last one, but a higher delta V. Meaning we need less burn time. Yeah. We need less burn time for the same amount of delta V to be pulled off. Seems so obvious in my head, and then I started, I was like, what? But no, that was right. Said it just fine. So we will orient ourselves retrograde. Look how quick this bad boy moves. We actually got 11 science from that. With the boost of 1. I can't believe the base was 10 on that, and I didn't chomp at the bit to go do it. We just got 3 science for doing science. Gonna warp to next maneuver. We'll have to add in some manual time warping. Get ourselves all the way to it with, some time spared in real life. Is that a 20? Because it has a little bit of lag behind it. And that lag seems to get greater the closer you are to your node. Right on the dot. Don't want to burn any extra, that's for sure. How are we doing? Clear it. As it stands, we will crash right back into Kerbal at an orbit of what? It says that our orbit will be 22 meters, which is suborbital, but over here it says negative 111. The fact is, regardless of which one's correct, this one will decay. We will come back in over here, and I'm going to save because we might lose all flight control by then. Burn 3, and I have to turn caps lock back on, otherwise we won't be in fine-tune mode anymore. So now we're back in it, turn off caps lock, good to go. Because we might not be able to, fuck me. No, I don't want to go back to the moon. Don't even suggest it. Gotta love ugly orbits. Is this ugly? I don't know. It's not pretty. It's a burn time of 1 second to go from suborbital to... Sorry, it just closed the... It just minimized the window. My face is because it seemed like it crashed. Yeah, I know that my fucking account settings are out of date. They're actually not. God, just put me back in full screen. We went from suborbital with potential of it crashing or possibly just being 22.777 kilometers above sea level. With a second of burn, we're going to have almost 1.5 megameter at the same point. And we would have eventually crashed into it after at least one orbit, if not after potentially in our first time trying to make another orbit, it could have crashed right back in. It probably would with the drag factored in. So this is days in the future. So it's a good thing we just knocked those contracts out because they expired in a few days from now. Can't auto work further than 2 hours? What? Oh, because I could crash into the moon, I guess is what they're saying. Yeah, I don't think so, buddy. Those are two different contracts. One of these is Minimus Synchronous Orbit, and the other is for the space station, which are actually both fairly polar. Sorry, that's not Minimus. Those are one's a polar orbit, and the other is an orbital station around the moon, which is in a polar orbit. Are you kidding me? No. Then I guess I have 2 contracts for satellites around the moon. Okay. Warp to next maneuver. And we're going to burn at 0 seconds. We're going to burn a blip of throttle and maybe add a little more, but not max. Because we'll push that burn time up higher by burning at partial throttle, low throttle. How are we doing for signal? 100% direct connection. I'm impressed. Oh, well, we don't have an inclusion that would do it. Basically, we've got plenty of burn time left. That's at full burn, by the way. We're going to be burning longer than that, but not at full burn. We're going to be burning much longer than a second, just not at full burn. Hopefully it won't be as long as 48 seconds of burn time. I would just pop it up closer. I just increased the throttle to avoid that in the first place without going full throttle. Because that's, I can't even demonstrate it right now how short that is, but it's a second. That's how long it is. If I demonstrated it right now, we get fucked up. Because we're already right on it. And we had 48 seconds of burn time left. 47. We used a second of it, translated to full throttle, as you can see. Our new apoapsis is above. Hyperbolic. Really ugly. Just like me. Alright. World's first milestone. We have initiated the first flyby of the sun. I'm not sure I ever pulled off a flyby in my previous playthroughs. Oh, that is a fake flyby too. I've just never taken on a contract that had me do an escape Kerbin orbit on its own right, and then still personally wanted to come back to Kerbin immediately following. It wasn't that important. We could have just let this fly off towards the sun and then just do whatever, whether we keep it or delete it. But I figured it's better to have some function. If it didn't destroy itself on its way around the sun and actually successfully orbited the sun at a point where it wouldn't burn up on its own too, it eventually could be used as relay. Every now and then it would occlude the sun from Kerbin and from probes around it, and have a link to other satellites nearby on other planets, but that would be very rare, and it wouldn't be a very strong signal. So transferring data through it would slow it down. It would be a huge bottleneck, no matter what. No matter how frequent we can even get it. We got some good science on that. So that's it. I haven't eaten today, so I am going to set something up that takes a little bit of time. I'm not sure just what yet. And I gotta do it for one science. These always sound like such fun, but they're awful. I was about to say, except this one doesn't seem so bad. No, it does. It's a surface outpost. A docking port is like, why? And then 5,000 units of electric charge isn't that hard, but supporting 5 Kerbals means a lot of stock parts to add in that much crew capacity. And all this has to be landed on Mimus, which means you have to have it pretty much assembled to. Yeah, the docking port is kind of useless because you can't easily dock ground items, and a rover can only hold so much, so it means launching a lot of sky cranes with a lot of rovers to build it. I try to avoid them, especially because they typically tend to not be that close to Kerbin, like on Mimnus. That's not that bad, but the first time I ever had one, it was on like Eve. That's not easy to do. The first time ever trying to land on Eve was to do this contract, and it ruined my whole save file of my first career. Ultimately, something that happened during that landing ruined the whole career. I wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the contract, so yeah, let's blame it on the contract. Collect 50% of the surface deployed mystery goo observation science on the Mun. We get 9 years to do it. Did it give us the surface deployed mystery goo tests? Also, I don't think XSplit has the ability to pause the stream, otherwise I would just do that while I go eat. The best I can do is have a secondary scene set up to switch over to that just says not streaming right now, which is kind of lazy. Because it doesn't pause the stream. Anyway. We do actually have it, but okay. I'm going to take a look at the tech tree. We've got a fair amount of science. 38. Not actually. Sorry, we can't get anything, can we? No. Nothing. You want some of this 45 empty tech? I can make a better parachute and put it in there as a mod. Well, I'm going to check to see if we can pause the stream while I go eat. Because most of my views are, well, almost all my views for this stream are apparently going to come from replay. So I'm looking this up because the option is not apparent, but I'm sure there's an option to pause it because YouTube streams can be paused and then resumed, and then the time spent in the pause doesn't end up in the replay. The time I'm spending right now explaining that well, but it is a price worth paying. Because I am fucking hungry, and don't really feel like live streaming me eat. It's gonna take a while to get my meal set up, that alone, even if I keep playing while I'm eating. There isn't an option to pause it. That is wild. So I'm going to go ahead and just set one up, a little AFK screen. I'm gonna move on over into scene 2 real quick, which I don't have set up, and just gonna drop a quick file for now. AFK stream overlay. Should find something public domain. I have to check the website. Oh, this might be in Romanian. The text is in English. No. Has a DMCA report. It looks like this whole website's for free overlays, so I'm going to go ahead and copy the image and drag the image right over here and full screen it. Oh my god, it is not 1080p. And it doesn't want to let me make it 1080p. I don't even have layout controls for it. Okay. Well, I'm going to go ahead and drop my camera just so that I can swap back over later on. Although it doesn't look like I'm streaming the second scene right now. My camera's still on. Am I streaming it? Alright, good to go. It is paused and it's showing the new overlay. We'll be right back. All right. Go ahead and swap back. Should be good to go. I'm gonna double check. This makes me a little nervous. It's a good portion of why I'm streaming this early on is self-reference. without taking up storage space on my own computer, no less. YouTube is basically free storage. I'm a little surprised they don't require monetary compensation from users to have private videos, since ultimately that's when it becomes personal storage. Unlisted is a little different, but private, yeah, it's just personal storage. Pulling it up now. We'll see. It's quicker than I thought it would be. Didn't realize how little there was left in the Tupperware. I'm gonna mute my mic so it doesn't. Yeah, we're switched over. Let's get to it. So, aerodynamics is something that I will be wanting because of, actually, no, it's not something I really ever care about. There's the nacelle. I was talking about it in my last stream. It kept popping in my head. Though I've never used it. I've said before, I don't really know much about making planes. Well, I know enough about making planes. I just can't seem to do it that well. It takes me way too long to make them stable. Make them, capable of getting off the ground. It's not about, making them faster or anything like that, or making them capable of doing something after that. I'd imagine once I get the first problem worked out, anything else up in the air is simple. As long as it still gets off the ground and lands fine. And flies expectedly. This isn't super important. Mark 1 crew cabin is kind of nice to have. TD18 and TD25 decouplers are useful in their own right. These are going to be nice to have. The IMIC is good as well. Oh, these two are for mods along with this one. I rarely use launch stability enhancers. If your rocket's tipping over on the launch pad like that, it's probably just too tall. Although there are some mods that might warrant making them that tall. But even early game, it's not that necessary. Like I got the fuel hoses from this 90 science piece that only required one of these two items. Both of these have purposes in early game. Well, as soon as you have this, there's almost never a need to have a super tall rocket. It's never the appropriate response when it seems like a need either. Like with putting up space stations, it might seem like you need one, but probably too big of a payload, and that's the issue of why the rocket's becoming bigger and bigger to get it up, and why it won't stand up anymore too. Okay, so I'm wanting to do some of those space station requirements at this point. But I'm gonna go ahead and take off Curb Your Enthusiasm 2, which is an equatorial orbiting probe contract. So we'll just load up this one. And we are going to, see, we've got a ladder here. I'm going to go ahead and put it right there. And then in order to complete it, we need a Science Junior, Materials Bay, and other, and how they worded it. Mystery goo unit as well. We can attach that to the surface of the Science Junior. So we go into Science. grab a Science Junior, also known as Material Bay, only in terms of contracts. See, you can observe the materials bay of it, but that's like a section of the Science Junior, and that's a trigger on the Science Junior. It's not a detail of that product. It's something you can do to it. So like you can check air pressure on this log pressure data. You wouldn't say that the ship must have a log pressure data on it. That's weird and very, very clunky grammar. That's everything to it. That is the only difference from this one and the first one, really. Yeah, everything we need. Thrust up, maneuver mode on, fuel overlay, SAS on for stability assist, which is T, or RCS off, that was an accident. And let's go back into vehicle assembly like we did before by rotating it. And a lot of these early streams are just preparing myself for November 2nd, which is game day with Extra Life. I'm hoping, it's a Saturday, I'm hoping to pull off a 24-hour stream. It's my first year with Extra Life. But be a little sad if I don't get any donations at least on that day. I'll start putting the word out a little more around then. Getting people used to my streaming schedule. You don't have to be that used to it to know that Saturday, November 2nd, any minute of the day I will be streaming. But I might be AFK eating like I was just a little bit ago, making my meal, but I will actually step away and eat my meals during that 24-hour stream. I at least deserve that much of a break during it. So ultimately, we want to go there. We want to go to space. I didn't know we could actually go underneath of it. That's wild. Is this Australia? Is this what it looks like in Australia? Oh! That's scary. I don't ever want to think about Australia again now. Might be able to survive this. This is why it's nice to have the pro-grade hold. These sort of issues don't really happen unless it's an aero problem when you've got pro-grade hold available. I can almost guarantee these are not aero problems. Actually, get the hell away from me, you basic fin. Okay. I actually meant to revert to launch, but may as well. Save, what is it, 100 units? I got a whole ass handprint on my screen. All of it. Palm, fingers, fingertips, every part of it. That is wild. Must be slapping it a lot. Didn't know I slapped it. I do now, obviously. Easy peasy. And what if the moon was that close to us, though? I would cry. Be like Majora's Mask. Do we not have a, we do. No. Reaction wheel. Seems a little sluggish to turn. It's not that heavy. Let me back up there while we still have burn time. Oh no. That apparently didn't solve our issue. I'm having the same thing I did before. Hold on, I'm gonna pause it. That's wild. It was working fine the second that I got rid of Kerbal Engineering Redux, and clearly it worked during this stream just fine. But we just got our controls locked out like at the end of last stream. That's not good. Oh, and now we're recording on my fucking video too. And I was just about to save it. Oh my god. Come on, at least open up NVIDIA GeForce so that I can turn that recording off. I don't need to be recording on every freaking software on my computer at once. Though I would like it if one of my softwares was capable of streaming to multiple platforms at the same time, since I know my internet can handle it. But that is not the current discussion. See, I'm right clicking and holding down as if I was trying to look around the ship. I'm trying the arrow keys, I'm trying WASD to pitch, yaw, and roll. And E to roll. Not doing anything. I can't click on these buttons. I clearly have a connection. It just says I can't transmit science. I press 1, it doesn't extend my antennas. I can go into these things, I can open up this, I can pause the game in there. I can't press escape. I can press escape in that menu and it exits, but I can't press escape out here to bring up the pause menu. I can't go into the map mode, I can't change any of my types of modes, I can't view advanced orbital info. As much as I hate to say it, I don't know how much more I can stream this game with these issues happening. Doesn't seem to be a mod issue anymore. But I can't trace the start of the issue. They say it's we're about to crash too. We add electricity. That wasn't the issue. Also, notice how this is like grayed out. Well, it won't write to the log unless I do a persistent save, which I'm not doing because this is a crash. It's still fairly early in the night, so I'm going to pick a different game to stream once I check out the log on this. I really would like to be able to trace this. The debug console doesn't work when it's frozen like this, so I can't debug it there. At least I have a way to pause the game for bad or worse, more terrible things, even more terrible things. Even more terrible things happen. It's pretty terrible. It's pretty more terrible. It's pretty even more terrible when compared to itself. KSP. Our last write to the log was at 9:26 p.m. I'm gonna pick a single player game. I've been switching between this and Arma. I'm gonna figure out a different single player game to pick the stream back up with. It's not written to the log, so I'm gonna hard close this, and so that doesn't persistent save and cause more issues. Guaranteed Kerbal Space Program 2, when it comes out, that will be streamed ad nauseum by myself, and hopefully by some other people too, but these issues just aren't gonna fix themselves, and I've tried to address them and clearly not succeeded. Which application? Makes it look like Windows itself isn't responding. Okay, it's all back to normal. Not the game. Unfortunately, that is the end of this stream. Because of the same issue last night, which was not an issue all day long. I mean, I didn't play the game all day long, otherwise I would have been streaming it a while back. But, I'm going to go ahead and pick a game real quick, and then I will end the stream to start the next one, just so that it has a correct name on it. I did some Forza Horizon the other day. Not feeling that right now. I'd have to get my wheel set up, plug my pedals and everything into it, and get that all synced up. And then Forza has more issues with crashing, honestly, because it doesn't like having any overlays on it. And the second you try and start streaming it, it's just going to get worse. I also can't stream it directly because of the whole overlay issue. I can only stream my whole screen, which makes 4K scaled down at 1080p look like shit. This is a 2-hour stream. Go figure. I don't think I started quite at 9:20. It's wild. I'm still looking for a new game. I got it. We'll be streaming My Summer Car. If I still have it installed here. Not, we'll pick a different one for the meanwhile, and then stream that probably tomorrow once I've reinstalled it. But I should still have it. Let's see, it'll be in this folder if it's on this drive. I've got too many drives at this point, and I've got Steam libraries in all of them. Gets confusing. I really should just move them out of Steam library entirely into a games folder and symlink to the other drive so that I can find them all with Steam offline. I don't really want to pull that up just to stream. It's going to be like, hey, you got to update. Looks like My Summer Car is not on the hard drive, the newer hard drive, but it's the worst quality. The other one's got like 20% of its life left, and it's still a better hard drive. It's also like 8 years older. That's still a better, and it was meant for a laptop. It just keeps making itself seem worse, but it's so much better than the 3.5 I've got for my build. My Summer Car. There it is. Alright, we'll pick that stream up. I still have to get my wheel set up for it, I guess. But, yeah, I'm going to start a whole new gameplay for it. And you're going to see me lose my fucking mind. It takes about 2 days on and off playing my summer car for me to go actually insane. Let's get started.